We have got big injury news coming down for you on a Friday. Eagles star A.J. Brown has officially been ruled out for Sunday's game against the Giants. The All-Pro wide receiver dealing with a hamstring injury, apparently. He has been unable to practice at all this week. Brown is the Eagles' second leading receiver this season, tallying just under 400 yards through 7 games. Sunday's game against the Giants and the Eagles, that kicks off at 1 Eastern in Philly, and it just got a lot more interesting. For more on that, let's welcome in one of our NFL experts, Ryan Wilson. Ryan, we're going to dive into maybe what the tea leaves might be saying in all of this, but let's start with the Eagles offense and what this means for them now without A.J. Brown.
Yeah, huge week last week for A.J. Went for over 120 yards, his biggest performance so far this season, had 2 touchdowns. He's not out. You talked about it, Amanda. He's the second leading receiver on this team behind Devontae Smith, but just 2 catches more than tight end Dallas Goedert. And then Saquon Barkley is next. And I think Saquon Barkley is the name we need to underline in bold because I think the offense is going to have to go through him. And by that, I mean not necessarily running the ball, but finding ways to get him the ball in space. We know Jalen Hurts can win with his legs. Had a great passing week last week in that win over the Vikings. His most consistent performance probably so far this season. You continue to lean on Devontae Smith in the tight end. Hopefully you can get Jahan Dotson involved. He hasn't been targeted very often this season because AJ's been healthy. But I think it starts and ends, honestly, with getting Saquon Barkley more involved with the ball in his hands more often. Something else to keep in mind, Paulson Adebo, the cornerback, is out for the Giants. Things went sideways for them pretty quickly when he left last week's game against the Broncos with that knee injury. And Javon Holland, who also left last week's game, the safety, is doubtful with a knee injury. So perhaps this balances it out, but not having A.J. Brown is a huge loss for that downfield passing attack for the Eagles.
They are going up against the Giants, who, of course, are coming off that big loss against the Broncos in the fourth quarter. And the Eagles, up until the injury, they were 7.5 point favorite in this game. Most everyone's still going with the Birds to win this, potentially still cover that spread. How do you feel about them in this particular game against the Giants?
Yeah, I don't think this changes anything. Certainly, Nick Sirianni and the coaching staff were well aware that A.J. Brown was battling that hamstring injury. You don't come back typically in a few days from a hammy anyway, so I'm sure they understood what this meant going forward. They're also probably still pretty embarrassed about the beatdown that Jackson Dart and Brian Dable and the Giants gave the Eagles just a few weeks ago. Again, I just go back to last week's game for both teams, but starting with the Eagles. That was a convincing win and something they probably needed against the Vikings, and I think they're going to build on that going forward. We heard J.P. Acosta talk about this earlier. Jalen Carter's going to be back defensively, so that's certainly going to help things from the Eagles' perspective and make things a little more difficult from the perspective of the Giants, who are already without Malik Neighbors and asking their rookie quarterback to do a lot under very dire circumstances. So I feel the same way I felt an hour ago before the A.J. Brown news was official. I think they're going to go in and find a way to not only win that game, but win it by the 7.5, if that's the number you're still interested in.
We are now less than 2 weeks away from the trade deadline. It is Tuesday, November 4th. A.J. Brown, as mentioned, look, he's not been happy with this team. He's not been happy with the targets, even after he did have that last great game. He went to social media, say they're using me, but they're not using me, and now you have him out with this injury. And do we start looking at potentially, are we looking at a trade here in regards to him? It would feel crazy from the Eagles' perspective, but do you think about that at all?
I mean, we also said for how long, Amanda, that there's no way that Jerry Jones would trade Micah Parsons, and here we are. The other side of that conversation is this. The Dallas edge rush, pass rush crew is terrible, in part because someone named Micah Parsons probably isn't there. So I would, not that A.J. Brown's going to care what I say, I would be careful what you ask for if you are, in fact, asking to leave a pretty good situation just because you're not the primary target each and every passing situation. Because, man, listen, you could end up on the Raiders. Maybe they trade Jacoby Myers for A.J. Brown and some change, and then you're like, okay, it ain't so great here, even though I'm getting 25 targets a game. So I understand the frustration, and we've talked forever about wide receivers being divas, quotation marks, whether it's Odell Beckham prior or even Terrell Owens before him. Those are all great players, as is A.J. Brown, but there's so many mouths to feed on this Eagles offense that you just have to wait your turn and then take advantage of it. And that's exactly what A.J. Brown did last week before the injury. As I mentioned, over 120 and 2 touchdowns. Just just be careful what you ask for.
Be happy with winning. Be happy with the Super Bowl. As you said, you could be on the Raiders. Ryan Wilson, we appreciate it. Ryan Wilson is the host of With the First Pick podcast. A lot going down as we enter Week 8 of the NFL. Make sure to download and listen. All right, let's bring in Dave Richard here. Let's look at this A.J. Brown news from a fantasy perspective. Again, out for their game, their Week 8 game against the Giants. Devontae Smith is there. He's received most of the targets. Congrats if you have them. Yeah. How do you address this news from a fantasy perspective?
Yeah, it's terrible because there are 6 teams on bye this week. There are so many injuries at the wide receiver position, and now we're losing a guy who was a slam dunk. I don't know if we can call him a top 10 wide receiver in A.J. Brown, but we know he's got that kind of upside, especially against the Giants with all the injuries that they have in their secondary. Their pass rush hasn't been getting home. This is a nightmare, and having to replace somebody like that, it's impossible. You can't do it unless you just got a loaded bench. But if you've got Devontae Smith, you've got Dallas Goedert, those guys are going to go off. There have been 4 games. It's the last year plus the playoffs in 2023 when A.J. Brown was out. In 4 of those games, Dallas Goedert had 12 PPR points 3 times. 1 game was a dud, but the other ones were great. Devontae Smith played in 3 of those 4 games. He missed 1 of them. All 3 of those games, double-digit targets. All 3 of those games, at least 14 PPR points. 2 of those games, 20-plus PPR points. You're starting Devontae Smith anyway. But now it's not like, oh, Devontae Smith, could he have a big game or is he going to be a dud? Now you know. Now you can expect it's going to be a big game for him. You should feel very confident in both him and Dallas Goedert. And Saquon Barkley's got to get going here. And everybody's starting Saquon anyway. I think that we
continue to start him anyway. We would like to see something
even though he
else.
gets us
this is like when I had Tyreek last season.
Right,
I still started him.
Because you're afraid of missing out.
Yeah.
This needs to be the week for Saquon Barkley, going up against his former team. Get the ball going. There have been games as recently as last week where he gets going early, and after that, the Eagles either get away from him or his efficiency absolutely tanks because everybody knows that Philadelphia is running on him. It's been weird. And I think that this is the week where Saquon Barkley shows up. Jalen Hurts still a top 10 quarterback, but not a top 5 quarterback. His numbers haven't been quite the same because he's not throwing as much, and there could be a chance that
last week was better.
He had A.J. Brown last week.
Okay,
if he doesn't have A.J. Brown, it kind of hurts. And really, it's more like a PPR thing versus a non-PPR thing. Not that you're going to sit Devontae Smith or Dallas Goedert either way, but you want those catches to count, and they're going to get more targets with A.J. Brown not there. And if you're missing A.J. Brown and you got to go to your waiver wire to find a receiver, start with the Broncos wide receivers against the Cowboys. Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin, that's the order I like them in. Those 2 guys are available in a lot of leagues. Those 2 guys can end up being pretty good this week because they're taking on Dallas.
Okay, all of great info. I think you just made somebody who has A.J. Brown feel a lot better, and that is why you get paid the big money, if you will.
We'll see.
Dave Richard,
hard to win without him, though.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. You could be playing me, and I never set my lineup, and then you're going to win regardless.
Have I mentioned that I want you to join my high-stakes league next year?
No, please don't. Please don't.
Are you sure?
No.
I mean, you could listen to our podcast. That'll help you out, but you actually have to set your lineup, Amanda.
That would help. If I listen to the podcast, which I do, I just don't always. It's more like I like you guys as people. I don't listen to the advice so much
as long
all
as
the
you're
time.
listening, it's cool.
Yeah, exactly. You get the numbers either way.